All right, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in to Media is My Ministry, the podcast, where I am your host, Moesha Mashaya, or you can just call me Moesha. We have a very special guest today that I'm super duper excited to be sitting down with. him. And it was when I was getting ready to write a book. And I remember asking God, I was so stressed out. I was like, God, why am I writing this book? Who's going to read it? Who cares? And I remember asking God, I'm like, do you want me to write this book? If you want me to write this book, I need to see it in black and white. Wow. And I was standing in my sister's house and I heard him say, flip open the Bible. And we know how people say, oh, that's not going to work, whatever. I flipped open the Bible and it brought me to a scripture. It was in Jeremiah. And it said, all of the things that I have said unto thee, write thee in a book.
Come on, Jesus.
And when I tell you, I was standing there and I was like, is this for real? Is this for real? Yeah, and guess who was the next person that I reached out to? You.
No.
You.
Oh, wow.
I don't think I've ever shared this with you, but I reached out to you and I asked you because I remember you had wrote a book and I asked you for some advice. And so I don't even know if I thank you for giving me the resources to be able to write my first book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I just thought about that and I feel like that's just God confirming to me that this is a divine connection.
There you go.
For sure.
But he will definitely give you those moments where he will specifically be like, let me just, because if it's subtle, they're not going to get it.
Yes,
so
he know me.
Yeah. He'll give you those moments where he's like, look, this is what I'm saying.
Black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like that's what's happening for me right now in my relationship with him. He is putting things literally in black and white. Like I'm talking about, my aunt mentioned to me a couple months ago, we were talking about God and hearing his voice, and she mentioned that God is going to speak to you in the way that you're going to listen. Like he's not going to try to talk to you in a language that you can't understand. And so he knows that for me, I'm a writer. I need to see things in words. So the Bible, being able to read it, or I could be riding down the road and I see a billboard, and that's how he speaks to me.
But that's also I'm trying not to get deep. But you've stepped into another realm because you are you're sensitive now to wanting to hear him.
Yeah.
So you're on another frequency where you're able to hear. It's not that he hasn't been speaking and talking. It's you've shifted and you've stepped into a realm where the frequency is, you're more sensitive. It's a sensitivity there where you both are aligned more. Well, your ear is to his lips more. Yeah. So that's why you're able to see those messages because you're tuned in now. You've tapped in. As the old folks say, from faith to faith and glory to glory, Jacob's ladder, whatever you want to say, but you've tapped into another level. That's why it's so it's flowing.
Yeah, and it really it's mind blowing to me because I wasn't at this place where I was listening, and it took him.
That's the word.
Yeah, it took him he had to really sit me down and show me. He said for the last couple of years, it's not that I haven't been talking to you. He said you haven't been listening, and so he said, but that's okay. Yeah, he said that's okay because even the things that I've told you 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it'll come back to you. It'll start making sense to you now. So. That is definitely confirmation.
Yeah.
Confirmation
you
for sure.
Tapped in. Like you said, it's not that he hasn't been talking. Yeah. You just wasn't ready to listen.
Yeah.
But now you're. Yeah. now you're there. You've tapped into another frequency. So yeah.
What advice would you give? Because you are an actual ordained minister, right? Yeah. How long have you been in ministry?
I have been in ministry, gosh, and the way that I look at it is, regardless of education or all of that stuff, it's about hearing the call and answering the call. And that can happen at any moment. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are. And I feel like for me, my commission came, I think I may have been 21, 22. Wow. So I've been in ministry for a long time, and it doesn't happen. Folks feel like you have these big moments, or you're in the church, or it was just it is so profound the way that it happened because I literally I got lost. I got lost, literally.
Really?
And driving in my car.
Oh, wow.
When I say I literally got lost, I was in the military.
Okay.
Didn't really know what I, wanted to do with my life. But I just knew that I needed to be headed in a direction where I was doing something. In the military, doing stuff that young folks do. I was involved in a relationship that I shouldn't have been involved in. Like, that's what we do.
Yeah.
Involved with somebody that was involved with somebody else. So I was, and back then, with me being 21, there was no Siri, there was no GPS.
I can't imagine.
There was none of that. We had to go on like MapQuest or something like that to figure out.
I would have been lost every day.
Girl, luckily, being in the military, I knew how to read a map.
Okay.
But this particular day, I was coming from somewhere and I took a wrong turn. Wow. I took a wrong turn and it was crazy. Cause we from the country, right? So I'm in a completely different state, not even thinking. I'm turning down like this dirt road because we from the country. We used to drive on dirt road. Yeah. So I'm like, okay. I get a piece down this dirt road and the further I go, I find myself in this field. Oh. And it was a cornfield at that. Wow. And I don't know why I kept going. Wow. But the deeper I got, the less I could figure out how to get out. Like, I was so disoriented.
It's a word in this.
I'm telling you. And wow. I don't often share this, but this was my commission. I think I think I told my husband once, and I've talked about it a couple of times. Wow. But, the deeper I got, at some point I stopped. Because I could not figure out where I was going and how to get out. So I had to stop.
You had to stop.
And I was so anxious because there was like no way out. Wow. And I had gone so far that I was too afraid to I couldn't turn around, and I didn't want to back up because I didn't know where I was going. Wow. So I did all that. The only thing that I knew to do was to put my car in park, and I took a deep breath and I closed my eyes and I said, God, if you get me out of this, wow. I will serve you for the rest of my life. Wow. And that was my moment. I opened my eyes. When I opened my eyes, there was a road to my right. Wow. I promise you, before I closed my eyes, there was nothing but these tall corn stalks and nothing that I could see other than either you're going to keep going, not knowing where you're going, or you're going to stop. I opened my eyes and there was this road and I turned down this road and that's how I got out. And from that moment on,
that is such a revelation.
That's my commission. Wow. That's my commission. Now did I just from that moment on know what to do and do everything right? No. Yeah. But that was me and God's moment where and I'm not going to say, because when you know that you've been called, you know it. Yeah. You may not know how to articulate it, or you may not know what it is, but you're walking in that. It's almost like the Lord is like right there, just waiting for you to get that revelation. So I feel like I knew who, or I knew something about what God was trying to do. I just didn't know how to define it. I didn't know how to articulate it because we grew up around the church. But I knew that being in church, the way that we was in church was, I knew that there had to be more. Yeah. But I wasn't ready to look for it. Yeah.
Because I was going to ask you, being so young, how did you... Because I feel like for me personally, and for like some of the people who I feel like will watch the podcast, some of my friends, we find ourselves in a place of knowing, the call, but also struggling to, I guess, walk in it in the way that looks right and feels right. So what advice would you give to someone who is like, okay, I know, what the calling is, but I don't feel ready. I don't feel prepared.
Oh, yeah.
I don't feel good enough.
Absolutely. And I feel like that's by design, because none of us are ever ready.
Yeah.
You know, there's a place in Scripture that says, basically God is perfecting the saints until the return of Jesus. So for me, that means that we'll never be perfect. You know, we won't ever get it right. But as long as we're striving to get it right. And then also, God uses moments where He separates us. Even if we don't get it, like when you go off to college or you go off to the military and you find yourself away from all of those things that's your norm, and family and friends and everything that you're used to. Those opportunities are God's opportunities to separate us from that, to pull, that relationship with Him closer. So I think about my son, like he's off at, University of Alabama.
Roll Tide.
I know somebody's gonna be like, War Eagle.
No.
But his relationship has continued to develop and deepen with the Lord, because he's there on his own. He knows that Mama and Daddy are 3 hours away. So, and growing up in the church around relationship with God, he carried that with him. So wherever you are, you're going to carry it with you. And God is going to put you in places and moments where you're going to pull from that. And that's how that intimate connection with Him starts. Like, Mama ain't here, Daddy ain't here. Them streets that I was in back home, not here. And that's not to say that you won't be, you won't have moments where you be like, I ain't ready. I'm not ready, God. Because again, I was the person who was involved with somebody who was involved with somebody else, knowing,
right from wrong, or what?
Knowing who I was. Knowing that, there was a relationship that was deeper than the relationship that I didn't want to let go of. But God knew. You made a promise to me that you committed to me. And sometimes even when we aren't ready, He will place us in moments where you don't have any other choice. Because from that moment, He pulled me completely away. Like, I couldn't get in a car and drive to Alabama. He took me all the way to Japan, the other side of the world, where I couldn't get to anybody, didn't know anybody. The first 6 months I was there, I was miserable because, I'm like, what am I doing here? But he literally, there was a knock on my door one day. Somebody that I worked with was like, girl, come go to church with me. Come go to church with me. And that was one of the defining, most just, I don't even know the word, but that church family was one of those moments that God used to pull me closer to Him. So He'll definitely pull us away from a lot of things, even when we're not ready. He'll do it. So it's not like we try to make it so deep, and we try to figure it out in our own knowledge and wisdom and understanding. It's most of the time it don't work like that.
That is such confirmation. Because for me, that I just moved back home. I was in Florida for 2 years. And I think had I not went to Florida, I wouldn't be where I am right now.
Absolutely.
God basically told me, He said, you thought you was in Florida for one thing. He said, but I actually sent you there. He said, I needed to separate you from your family and friends. He said, because when I called you, I needed you to know that it was nobody but me.
But Him.
And I was like, oh my God, it makes sense now. It makes sense now. So sometimes even the relationship that you mentioned that you were in, that you probably shouldn't have been in, I feel like sometimes God is so strategic because now you have that story to be able to, help other people who, you see them like, you don't need to be in a relationship. Let me help you.
Yes. And sometimes you don't even have to specifically say anything to anybody. People can just kind of follow or watch your walk, and your walk, kind of speaks for you.
Yeah.